Thanks very much for tuning in today. I'm with Brad Askew, who is the author of this book here, Life Pivot. So if you have not yet seen it on Amazon, it is on Amazon right now. I'm actually about 40% of the way through this book as I record this video, but by the time you see this, I probably would have finished it. So Brad and I have not rehearsed this at all, which I actually quite like, but that just appeals to my personality type, which is something we're going to be diving into in the book. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you, Brad, a series of questions, and you've got to be as as real and honest as you possibly can be, knowing the fact that we are on camera, and that's actually quite...
As I've not rehearsed. I don't think I've got a choice, do I? But
that's probably the best way. Yeah. So just for the audience tuning in now, so Brad Askew is a former lawyer and then turned entrepreneur. So rather than me giving you a very kind of half-baked summary of what you've done in your life and where you're at now, would it be okay if we just kind of ran through your journey over the last maybe 10 years
Sure.
as a kind of a backdrop to people who may not know you? So go for it.
Well, I qualified as a solicitor in about 2001, I think. I qualified in a national law firm here in Bristol, the best city in the world, I would say, doing civil and commercial litigation, and went brilliantly. Awesome people. I'm still really good friends with so many of them, friends for life, many of them. And in 2007, I was sitting down with a friend at the top of Corn Street, the Cobley one, and a friend of mine who was doing a comparison site online for finance just said, well, who's doing this for law? The law was disrupting things. It was, even though at the time I felt quite late in the whole tech run, Google had happened, it was all moving quickly, but actually in the age of comparison sites, you could buy your car insurance online, no one had actually liberalized it for law. Lawyers were starting to adopt email, and so there certainly wasn't any, I read a book called What Would Google Do?
I was going to ask you about that.
Were you? Okay.
Yeah. So go for it.
And it's not about anything we're talking about today, but it was basically, it just made me curious. It said, how on earth did Google become what it is today, which is like 86% of searches online, and they own YouTube, which might actually come up later because they had a pivot. They started off as a dating website. Now have 1 billion people a year watching videos. How did they beat Yahoo, who were the biggest internet brands? And how did they beat Microsoft, who had all the money in the world? And the answer was through servant leadership. Just help people. Start with the customer, work backwards. Just serve, give it away. So I had that thought, maybe I should do that in law. So my company, Everything Legal, was started in 2007. That was my first pivot in my career. And I built a rather large website. And that grew into something quite big. And in about 2011, the goal was to help people find the right legal advice. Law firms are brilliant at, when you have an actionable case against a neighbor or an employer or a personal injury, or you need to restructure a company and do a share restructure. Lawyers are worth their weight in gold. The value they add, many of the people watching this video will probably be lawyers and say, yeah, actually we're valuable. And they are. But there is a large number of people who actually don't need a lawyer, and the lawyers don't want them because they don't have a claim. They just need help, information, guidance. They need a hand on the shoulder through the internet to say, go here, go there.
Yeah.
And so the goal was, how do I just create a platform to help people find the right legal advice?
Yeah.
And so that was 2007. It grew over a period of 4 years to a significant number of people. 9,000 web pages, just putting law online, legal documents, you name it. And then we said, if you need a solicitor, go here or there. And then people could fill in a form and end up with a solicitor.
Yeah.
And if they needed one, many didn't actually need a solicitor, but we offered that service. And in 2011, that was taken over by a large legal insurance company based here in Bristol, who were and are formidable in their area, had a large market share, helping major banks and brokers with legal insurance. And so that was taken over, and I stayed on for a while, and after a little while became clear that as an entrepreneur in a big machine, they are awesome at doing scale. But as an entrepreneur, I like to, like you, Des, come up with 3 new ideas after my breakfast. And so
on a bad day, yeah.
So I think I was making everyone around me seasick, and I think I was getting a bit seasick as well. And so there came a time that there was a pivot there where I just had a chat with my boss and just said, actually, I'm here in Bristol. You guys run with it. Call me if you need me.
Yeah.
And at that point, I took a sabbatical, well earned. I think I was probably more tired than I realised. Startups are a tiring affair, changing, pivoting every week, learning, trying to take people on the journey with you. A massive learning curve for me.
Yes.
Because, I was a lawyer. I'd not been on an MBA business course or something.
Yeah, you just learn by doing, basically.
I tried to watch Dragon's Den to see if Peter Jones could explain some things to me, but that was my journey, and it took some time out. And after that, I did a number of small startups. I got involved in a number of charities, a lot of mentoring, which is my real passion, which is just helping people flourish. Which, although we've got here, it took me a while to get to Life Pivot, but I think this has been informed by spending, as you know, countless hours with people, just hearing the real stories, which can be complicated.
Yeah, absolutely, and very nuanced as well, which I think you do pick up in the book. One thing I wanted to ask you about, so your first pivot back in 2007, was it, when you started everything legal?
Yes.
What caused you to kind of even grab hold of that idea? Were you perhaps subconsciously already looking for something a bit different, or were you that self-aware at that point, or were you just kind of going along with it? I'm just interested to know.
I think it's a great question. In hindsight, I must have been mad, because for anyone who doesn't know the stats, 4 out of 5 startups fail in year 1, and only half of them will exist in 5 years' time. So that's a 1 in 10 hit rate, and that assumes you vaguely know what you're doing.
Right.
And I didn't. So why did I do it? I think looking around at my colleagues, many of them who I am still in touch with, they were exceptional lawyers, and they loved their craft.
Right, and you do pick up on that in the book, actually. So just for people watching, that Brad does actually mention that there was this kind of gap. So carry on.
Where they look forward to the Times Law reports coming out on, I think it's Thursday, and they will read, did you see the latest Court of Appeal case?
So they were really, really into it.
And so they should.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed the team, and I think I was good at that. I had a great relationship with my bosses, because I was responsible, I was diligent, I did work hard, I did try and do my best, and I did put my hand up when I didn't know what I was doing, which made their lives hopefully a bit easier. But I was just very aware that I flourishing in the first 7 or 8 years of law was great. But in order to flourish in the next 30, you really need to be passionate.
Right, you need to dig deep.
But there was no enmity. I didn't hate it.
No.
I really enjoyed it. I loved the advocacy. I really enjoyed helping clients, because as a lawyer, you have the power to really help people by getting orders from the court. Yeah, the helper in me was being expressed in that, being able to, whether it was civil or I was doing commercial litigation of smaller scale, but I was able to help people fix problems, which did it for me. But there was that, and the other thing is I'm very creative.
Right.
I've since realised. And so I love the formation of new ideas. I really enjoy sitting down with people and coming up with new thoughts that we haven't thought before.
Yeah.
And putting that together with that. And of course, in law, there are certain aspects which are unbelievably creative, but a lot of it is, what does the Consumer Rights Act say? What does the Partnership Act 1890 say? And you can't really rethink that. That's for the higher court to do.
Right, I'm with you.
And so I wasn't expressing that. And so I had friends who were working in the digital revolution, and I was always a little bit jealous, thinking, hey, that looks fun.
Right. Yeah.
That looks really fun. I can see the ability to influence. Yeah. So it was a bunch of things like that caused me to want to pivot.
So just to recap, then you got to 2011 and you sold that everything legal to a much bigger entity, and then you said about you were just saying how the sort of the digital space attracted you. Is that kind of where you pivoted to next, or did you kind of like you said you took a sabbatical, for example?
Yeah.
So tell me more about that.
So an older person mentors me, very wise. He was saying, take 6 months out just to really process, to have a think, to reflect. I've got three young children, and so take that opportunity to really not rush into the next thing, which is the danger. And I think I allude to that a bit in here. So actually, we went down to South Africa for about 4 months. I was born there originally. We were in Cape Town. We went up to White River, spent some time with an organisation called Hands at Work, who are mentioned in the book as well. Unbelievable organisation, charity. And within that period of time, I got to connect with a number of entrepreneurs who were in the social sector, people who were, how do you do the entrepreneurial thing in a way that really solves social problems. I read a book called Power of Unreasonable People, how the reasonable man adjusts himself to the situation he finds himself in. The unreasonable person tries to change the world to fit their view of it. And I met a bunch of unreasonable entrepreneurs who were trying to change the world through their ideas and using capitalism and entrepreneurship to come up with new models for job creation in the new South Africa. And what one friend of mine set up an organisation training entrepreneurs, training about 2,500 a year, and on average was growing their turnover by 50% by connecting them with a mentor. There's really incredible stuff. Yeah. So, and in the book, I think I do mention I went into lots of cul-de-sacs, not wasted journeys, but every one of them was, could this be my next thing? Could this be my next thing? Spend time with a charity. Think, this is amazing. I love the people. I could totally give my life to this. But then I wouldn't be able to do the entrepreneurial thing because my visa wouldn't allow me to. Right. And so we even met up with visa people in South Africa saying, okay, which visa could I get? And so during that time, we knocked on a lot of doors just to ask open-ended questions. Yeah. Rather than just saying, well, let's do this or do that, which I think is the risk in that situation. Yeah. So that transitions very nicely, perhaps more into the book, because in my reading of it so far, just for those of you joining us, what I'm doing is I'm just chatting with Brad Askew, who's the author of Life Pivot, which really, this book does what it says on the tin. And I immediately got the idea. Brad showed this book to me not that long ago, and I purchased it just a few days ago, and I'm 40% of the way through. And it's been a surprisingly meaty book, especially since Brad has never written a book before. I really am pleasantly surprised how much I'm finding this challenging. And I always think that's a really good thing. So just sort of pivoting into the book then, you mentioned about, like you just touched on that just now, about how you couldn't get a visa to be able to enable you to do that. And you mentioned in the book how there are just constraints that surround us that do kind of provide a boundary from within which we might be able to operate our ideas or not. And another thing you've mentioned several times in this conversation about the role of mentors. So if somebody doesn't have mentors and they're not that self-aware, they've got a crazy idea about what they want to do in their life that is different to what they're doing right now, what sort of simple steps could they take to kind of get the equivalent of mentors, people to be able to I suppose point out a few things that might not be obvious to themselves. I mean, explore that with me. I think there's an African proverb. Well, I know there is because it's in the book. There's an African proverb which says, "If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together." Right. And we live in a radically individualistic world where everyone has their own everything. You watch what you want when you want on Netflix. You pay on demand, absolutely everything. You go to whichever gym you want. So a lot of people find themselves to be islands, and we're not. We're not. We need other people, and so harnessing relationships. I talk a lot about mentors, but equally friendship, peer mentoring from friends who we respect, as long as they are friends who will speak truthfully to us. Right. Yeah. Who don't necessarily tell us what we want to hear, but tell us what we need to hear, but in a kind way. Absolutely. And another real proverb from the Bible this time is, the wounds of a friend are better than the kisses of an enemy.
Right.
And so sometimes people will just say, go for it. You can do anything. And that's not true. It's not true. It's will make people click. It's not true. We are all brilliantly unique. So in the book, the tagline, how do I answer the question, what should I do with the rest of my life? I was having a conversation just the other night with a few friends. We had a curry together, and one of them, a GP, and another guy was saying, actually, the mental health of our nation is at an all-time low. And he was reflecting on the fact that there is a cultural narrative of what the good life is, which is creating a uniformity where people are all becoming this, molding into this narrative of what it looks like to be successful. And that is the thing that makes people say, so-and-so, they've done well. But that cultural narrative will be different in every country. In our country, it's very economic. It often means nice house, car, international holiday.
Where did you go on holiday this summer?
Where did you go on a holiday?
Yeah.
And those things are not all wrong, but they miss the unique diversity we all have. And so when people have this question, there was that Gallup poll in 2013, which says that about 87% of people are not emotionally engaged with their work. And it doesn't mean they hate it, but it's a function.
Right. Serves a purpose to
and
put bread on the table.
It doesn't come from here.
Right.
And their LinkedIn profile enables them to do it. They have the skills, but they're not expressing all of them. And so the question I had in writing this book is, well, why is that the case? How did we get there? And I suspect it's because we all follow, in the first half of our life, we follow scripts, which are given by parents, by teachers, for many, religious leaders, by anyone we respect.
Right.
And they're not all bad. They're scaffolding for life.
Yeah.
But we go down those and we collect experiences, but we can end up being successful at those scripts and ending up somewhere away from who we are. So the things we love as a child, you end up becoming successful at something you didn't love as a child. And some people earn big bucks. And so that is how that happens. And so it's called life pivot. The pivot, I'm saying this, Des does not need to know this, but pivot is an entrepreneurial term. For a startup, you start up an idea with a set of assumptions which are true or false. And the entrepreneur's job is to release the idea into the wild as quickly as possible with a minimum viable product.
Yeah.
And rapidly learn, gather data on whether those assumptions are true or false. And as soon as possible, you pivot in line with reality.
Yeah.
So YouTube, we said earlier, used to be a dating website.
Who knew? I didn't know that until you mentioned it to me. Interesting.
A dating website. And they realized that people were not putting up profiles about what lovely gentlemen they were. They were putting up videos of cats. Yeah. So it's now getting a billion users a year. It's the world's second biggest search engine, and they pivoted. So my working thesis is that we start off in life with a set of assumptions which are probably great. They're not wrong. You have to
start somewhere.
You have to get the miles on the clock to gather the experiences. And there comes a certain age, it will be different for everyone.
Yeah.
But let's assume between 35 and 55, where you have enough experience and data to actually pause and reflect on that. So in the book, the tools I look at there are 5 of them. And I have 0 academic qualifications to write this book. Okay, I'm not a career counsellor. I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm not a counsellor. I mentor people. I'm very involved with lots of people, but I've struggled with this. So that's why I've gone deep. And you're saying it's meaty and helpful is brilliant. I feel the pain. I want people who are asking that question to know there is hope and they can discover their design again. And so the 5 things are: what are you uniquely gifted or capable at? and that won't be our skills necessarily.
Mm.
There'll be just something about us that we just do on autopilot. We don't even know we do it.
Right.
It's a blind spot in a positive way. We might not realise how good we are.
Yeah, we need almost other people to point it out to us, because I remember you actually said in the book that there were some things that you were doing that you didn't think were worth anything, but actually they were incredibly unique. But you just thought they were almost well, everyone could do that, but not everyone can, And
we're not aware of it because it happens on autopilot, and we're not aware of it because it doesn't take much energy. We're actually energized by it.
Right.
And so, for example, I know someone who can walk into a room, there can be 20 people there, and just by absorbing signals, body language, they just know who's had a horrible week and who they need to go sit next to and encourage.
And it's just like that, without even thinking.
That is incredible. Do they know that?
Right. Interesting.
So capabilities, what is it that makes us just uniquely capable or gifted, our passions? What is it we are passionate about? And most people can't answer those questions. What are you good at? What are you passionate about? Or rather, let me rephrase that. They can answer us in under 10 seconds, but then the people who know them really well, their family or friends who've observed them, so I know you say you're passionate about that, but you don't talk about it much.
Right, right.
Do you watch films on that? Do you buy books on that subject? Or, and the reason for this is the script. We do more and more of the things that gain us approval from people we respect. So there's this positive feedback loop. We do more and more of those things.
Right.
Whereas if you were to, and in the book I say, what are you passionate about? Asking friends when, and this is where you need good friends who will tell you things that could even be unpopular, could even make it weird, where you say to them, when have we been talking, or when have you observed me where I've actually leant forward, I've sat upright, I've started skipping words because I'm speaking so quickly, and that passion could even be anger, frustration. Humanitarian organizations are birthed not out of this warmth, but out of a chilling, this is not okay. I cannot live my life normally now I know this.
Yeah.
So when have you seen me like that? So anyway, that's passions. The third one you mentioned is weaknesses and limitations. Weaknesses are the internal flaws about us. I'm sorry to say. This is my favorite chapter, by the way, because no one ever writes about.
It's fascinating because I, as a result of going through this book, and this might be something for you as the viewer, I highly recommend you do what I didn't do, which is, as I read through the weaknesses chapter, I found myself skim reading it because I didn't want to face the questions, and that's very interesting. I wanted to get on to the nice bit, But after I read it, I thought, I really need to go back to that chapter. I really need to go back to that chapter.
I found it the most empowering. It was from a chap called Parker Palmer, who an elderly lady spoke to him, a wise person, and was just saying that when you look at the landscape of your life, there are doors that have closed. There are things that haven't happened. There are negative themes that exist. And they're just as the issue is, are they true? Okay, but in our world, it's all about breaking your back and climbing Everest, overcoming, walking on water.
Right.
You can do it, which is awesome. But the reality for all of us is there are weaknesses we have. And the reason it's important is the flip side of those weaknesses are strengths. So unless we know where those weaknesses are, and much like under this tablecloth, there is wood. If you go against the grain, you will get splinters.
Yeah.
And so often people are doing jobs or work. And by jobs, this book isn't about jobs. It's about what we do. And that could be for charity. It could be with people. It could be a whole range of things.
Right. Not just about career or anything. It really is very much about our lives.
It's about career because people have mortgages. So the practicalities come into it. But it's about what we're going to do. And so a weakness that causes friction, it could be actually that very weakness. You take that and put it in a different context and you fly. So, and I mentioned I'm quite a sensitive chap. I care what people think. And in certain situations that can cause friction for me because I'm not very good at the dog-eat-dog world, tug of war. For me, I want relationships to be front and center. But that can cause friction. But actually, if you take that thing, which can be a weakness and any number of scenarios and you put it in a people-centric place, like even this, helping people flourish, then I could fly. That's amazing because I'm at work.
That's not something I've heard before. Interestingly, about changing the context
rather than yourself.
Yeah, that is. I don't know how long that took you to kind of maybe just clicked, but I found that extremely helpful. And I'm sure
I've learned. I'm a sponge. I've absorbed this from this guy Parker Palmer. I reference them in the book. They go away and read books from a Franciscan monk. There's millennia of thought around true self and the various things we put over ourselves because we're afraid, but for one deep reasons. It's an intersection of philosophy and careers, and there's a whole lot of things. But weaknesses, limitations is the external. That's the third. So weakness and limitations are one, internal and external. I've got 3 young kids moving to Botswana and talking to hippos. Sounds fantastic, but that would be quite selfish now, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
and that's where we also need friends to say, "Don't be selfish."
Yeah.
Or get practical.
Yeah.
Maybe that's for another season. They might say. The fourth one, really interesting, and it is personality. We all have a unique basic personality type, and the reason that's important, we know what it is. We cannot change it. Whether it's nature or nurture, it's like concrete by the age of 4.
It is funny you should say this because I had some very difficult family situation happen to me recently, and I went back home and I was in the shop with my dad, and this lady, probably my age, slowly looked at me and said, "You're Des Futak, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes, I am." I was like slightly shocked, and she said, "Do you know, I heard you at the back of the shop. You haven't changed a bit." And actually, I felt really pleased to hear that. Some people think, "Oh, what do you mean I haven't changed?" Of course I've changed, but actually, I thought I'm glad I feel the same. She just from picking up on the little snapshot of who I am, she felt I was still the same person, and I'm kind of glad about that. But it's fascinating because I've always. I mean, you kind of you also do it. Sorry to digress here a bit, but you also deep dive into the book about what personality really means. You gave a really very challenging quote about and you said actually in the book you need to read this a few times about what personality is. I can't remember which page it's on now. I'm about 40% of the way through the book at the time of making this video. So, but anyway, if we can't find it, you need to get the book. And actually find this definition of personality.
There are.
Because it is really, really fascinating.
Yeah, sooner or later we must distinguish between what we are not and what we are.
Yeah.
And I think because from an early age, I think that the deep one you're meaning is so I reference Enneagram theory. And I'm not a human resources professional either.
Right.
I'm not, but I've absorbed from the helpful. And I know there's Myers-Briggs. Anyone who's worked at companies probably done that. There's this other one. But Enneagram theory I found particularly helpful because I think it has 9 different types of personality type. And there are online tests at Enneagram institutes which you can go on and do the test. And I did it. Hazel, my wife, did it. I've got friends who've done it, and it is quite scary when it comes up. Some people are a combination of things.
Yeah.
But when you look at that is totally me. And it also says, and here are the places, the weaknesses.
Right.
This is where you're not going to be very healthy if X, Y, and Z. And when I look at those are all the things that irritate me.
Yeah.
Completely. And so the thing that is helpful is it doesn't portray people as being good or bad. It's saying, wholeness and unwholeness. That's the opposite of wholeness. The wholeness or, they're flip side of the same coin.
Right.
That the greatest strength is often the greatest weakness. So having a self-awareness and saying, actually, this is great, but I need some boundaries up to really protect me against these situations. I need to learn to say no to these types of things. And so we can't change our basic personality. So aligning what we do with it. And I give the example of someone is a massive introvert and they are uniquely brilliant at something. But if they are, having a job which involves them spending 10 hours a day talking to people, I'm not saying they won't be great at it, but they might get very, very, very tired.
Yeah.
And so understanding, I love tennis, but to become a tennis coach, it's not love of tennis you need, it's love of teaching children.
Right.
Because you're never going to play properly again. You're going to be hitting balls with 6-year-olds.
Yeah.
And so just trying to understand what you do needs to align with personality. Otherwise, there will be friction.
Yeah, I mean, and is that because have you mentioned all 5 different points now? Because I have.
There's one more.
Yeah, you tell me the last one.
The final one after that. So gifts, passions, weaknesses, limitations. Number 4 is personality we can't change. Number 5 is motivations.
Right.
And I've said this about them all, that this is the most important one. But motivation is not what you're going to do, but why. Because it's all very well aligning everything, but if you can't be bothered, so if someone says, if their motivations change in every season of life. So what motivated you 20 years ago might be different now. In some seasons, it's all about getting money, to get on the housing ladder, to start a family, there'll be a bunch of things. But later on, it could be making a difference. It could be building community connections. It could be legacy. I mean, every week we're hearing about a billionaire who 2 years before the end suddenly gives billions to, because they're thinking about legacy.
Yeah.
They are. They're different motivations. They're not doing that to make money. They're doing that for entirely. So motivation is the fuel that will make us actually, once people have figured out their true crisp version of themselves, that motivation is what will propel them on the journey. So identifying what it is and being honest about it. Which explains why some people, one guy worked at Goldman Sachs, works in the inner city, urban priority area now. Why? It's not for financial incentive. He was motivated by something different, and he's aligning with it.
Yeah.
And so understanding that's the 5th.
And it's interesting because going right back to the beginning of our conversation where you talked about sort of pivoting, you mentioned, and I made a mental note of this, you mentioned a number of occasions at the beginning of our conversation. And for those of you just tuning in now, go back to the beginning of this video after you've watched it. And obviously, I'm going to do a sales pitch. No. But you mentioned something that really stuck with me. And I've kind of come late to the party in this myself. And that is the role of mentors in your life. And you did say about having, good friends who are close to you. But do you think there is something quite distinct about having somebody outside of your friendship group who also, perhaps they're either professionally skilled as a mentor or a coach, or at least they have that sort of aptitude, perhaps they're an older person. Do you feel that those, it feels to me that those people, whoever they were, did actually have quite an important role of nudging you slightly on your roadmap and helping you see things that you hadn't otherwise noticed?
Absolutely.
So tell me a bit about the difference between then, say, just like, your wife Hazel, who's obviously a very close friend and a co-mentor, you mentor one another, but how would that differ from somebody outside of that? And how can people tap into that who don't have that kind of current exposure to people like that in their current lives? And maybe we can't answer that now. But so tell me a bit about the role of mentors.
So I've been really, really fortunate. And you cannot commoditize wisdom.
Right.
There are people who've walked the walk for 50 years.
Right.
Who are happy for the fruit of their life to grow on other people's trees, as it were.
What a lovely way to put it.
I stole it. I'm sure I saw it on a mug somewhere.
But I'm happy to say that. That's actually, really good.
Yeah. You're thinking I'm a poet. Yeah.
No, I don't care where it's come from. I'm glad you said it because that's news to me. And hopefully news to you as well.
But so for example, being told that do not obsess about destination on the pivot. Don't obsess around where you're going. It's about the direction.
Interesting.
It's like, okay, so that's a really simple sentence.
No, but that's really interesting.
But that's big.
Yeah.
Because actually, in the end, after all 5, and with those 5 things, you end up, and this is just the way I've done this, I'm sure other people could slice and dice similar themes in different ways. But I've said you have coordinates on the map. But the first thing you need to do, if you're lost in Bristol Zoo, you go to any map and there is a thing that says, you are here. That is the first thing. And because if you don't know where you are, the map isn't very helpful. And so once you know you are here, then those things, they tell you where you are, and they're like coordinates on a map. And they aren't there to give you a job description. Say, therefore you should be a landscape gardener.
Right.
specialising in tropical plants. Or you should write a book called Life Pivot. That's not happened. But what they do is they are the edges to a 500-piece puzzle. The first thing you do in a 500-piece puzzle, I don't because of my personality type. My attention span is about 9 minutes if I haven't had any coffee. But once you've got that, you can progressively fill in the middle. Or it's the lines on the roads that keep you out of the ditches. They don't tell you how to get where you're going, but they show you where the road is. So the coordinates, those 5 things, they all lead to truth about me statements. The things that are true. And the truth is, I gave them to a couple of friends who are beta reading, who are friends of mine. My friend Mitch read it, and he went through it all. He said, the only thing is, I went through the truth about me statements. After each of those 5 things, there is a paragraph which you fill in.
Yeah.
Which is hard, but submit it to your friends. Think about it. Change the answer 400 times if you need to. But you need to fill in the paragraph.
Yeah.
And it is discoverable.
Yeah.
And then you read out all 5 of them together. And that's, for some people, be like, da-da! That's me. My friend Mitch said, actually, it felt foreign. And we were talking about it, even though it was true.
That's interesting.
And
That's really interesting.
So much so that it was only 3 weeks ago that I updated the paragraph. Like, okay, what do you do when it doesn't resonate? So
right. Yeah. Thanks, Brad. Yeah.
Thanks, Brad. This is rubbish. And in the end, we were talking about it at length. And this is where harnessing relationships is essential, even in writing a book.
Yeah.
So he was saying, but they are true, but they don't resonate. And so in the end, I came up with an analogy, which I do a lot, of a family we knew who took their family sailing around the world. And the kids were very, very little, and they learned to walk at sea. And when they returned to dry land, the kids were walking like drunken sailors.
Yeah.
Because they'd learned they had sea legs, not land legs.
Right.
And it took about 3 weeks for them to recover land legs.
Yeah. So
the false land felt more stable and sturdy than the real land. So that's the closest I got to explain how that works.
That's really, really, really interesting. Oh my goodness! Because so the fact that it doesn't resonate with you may not be a sign that it's not authentic. It's not been your experience.
And where the head leads, the heart follows.
Right.
Feelings follow thoughts, and I'm not going to get into neuro-linguistic programming. I don't like talking about things I can't spell.
That's brilliant. Quote of the day.
But I'm sure, hopefully, someone watching this can tell me whether that is linked. If you're a neuro-linguistic programmer, or whatever the job title for that is, but it doesn't resonate. So, it tells you what not to do. So when you're exploring ideas, seeds of passion, when you're looking at things, you can end up with a filter. If you know these statements are true, you can score new ideas. Like, should I do this? Should I start my own business? Should I do that or that? You can score them alongside the reality and end up with, if I know I love new ideas and I love the formation, I love the people, getting a job, and I actually give an example, a job leading a charity where I might do some of that, but the reality is I would be needing to keep a stable ship and build on last year's efforts.
Right.
I would be very far from the coalface, probably.
And it would be very frustrating
and there are things about it in terms of my motivation to make a difference and help other people. 10 out of 10, definitely.
Yeah.
But that would be undermined by other things. So each of those 5 things, they do give a direction. Your question was about mentors.
Yeah. No, that's cool. No, I'm glad we.
But just to show, I mean, I've been talking for 5 minutes around one thing a wise person said, someone in their 70s, around focus on direction, not destination. And so I think connecting with friends, there are mentor networks. Peer mentoring is great, but most of my friends are at a similar age and stage to me.
Right.
And I'm fortunate because I've got some really incredible friends who are very, very wise. They've worked in business, some of them in mental health, social work. They are people who care greatly for other people. And so I think looking for that professional coaching, one of the things I'm exploring is this book the end of the journey or the start?
Right.
And should I, there appears to be oxygen on the subject, that people are saying, actually, I am in the 87%, I'm not flying. And do you really think it's possible to pivot in a way where I become 100% me again and pay the bills?
Right. That's the elephant in the room, isn't it?
It's the elephant in the room, and I'm thinking, well, should I, entrepreneurially, use my things to link care for people with creating maybe a mentor network to actually help people connect with people who are good at this? And I don't know. I'm going to see which bits are helpful. But there are lots of coaches. There are so many, and I guess it's like anything. There are people who are worth their weight in gold, and other people you just don't click with.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
But it's essential. I would say it's essential because I don't know what I don't know. I can't see my blind spots. Right. It takes other people to, as one friend said to me, Brad, it seems like you've been in this situation 3 times where such and such didn't work out, and the only common denominator is you. A friend actually said that to me. Yeah. And I wasn't offended because I know he's for me and he's on my side. But that is helpful, isn't it? Yeah. To think, okay, maybe I need to think about that.
Cool. Yeah. Well, Brad, it's been absolutely awesome discovering this book and interviewing you today. So just for the viewers and anyone listening in, if we turn this into a podcast at some point, where can people go to buy this book and find out more about what you're doing, and just really keep in touch with what's going on with your new venture, really?
Yeah, so there is a website called lifepivot.co.uk. It's available on Amazon. It will be available elsewhere in Kindle and paperback. And if you're not in the UK, or there's a button on the website for UK and US, if you're not there, just Google Life Pivot Brad Askew wherever you are, and you will get there. The thing I would really value are the Life Pivot stories, because I'd love to learn together, harness pivots that have gone brilliantly. Because there are so many people who are coming up to me, who are even on LinkedIn, who are saying, I pivoted. That is so true. I wish someone had told me. Right. And I'd love to bring that experience and wisdom to the fore to help other people who are, 4 years behind in that journey. Right. And so there's a Facebook group at Life Pivots.
Yeah, we'll put that below the video. So when this goes out online, at the end of, if you're watching live, and fantastic, but after it's replayed, you will have a link below. Yeah. So we can find out more information.
Right, thank you so much.
Right, thank you so much today. It's been brilliant.
Awesome.
All right.
Loved it.
All right. Cheers. And we'll see you soon. Cool.